Tracy returned from the parent meeting completely upset. It was an autumn evening. Drizzling rain and a cold wind pierced through her. But it was even colder inside. It hurt and was offensive. And the problem was not that her 13-year-old daughter Celeste did not understand math. No, that was a problem too, of course, but it needed to be fixed, not cried over. Besides, the class teacher whispered to Tracy the phone number of a good tutor for Celeste. In fact, Tracy's mood worsened when Celeste's teacher, Mrs. Bell, suggested organising an event for Grandmother's Day. All parents supported this enthusiastically. Some had one grandma, others had two. Tracy remained silent. She had no one to invite. Her husband's parents died several years ago. As for her mum and dad, well, the word dad never existed for Tracy because he wasn't in her life. And her mum? Here, it was more complicated. She was alive, but she didn't exist for Tracy. Of course, she gave birth to her, but it would have been better if she hadn't. That's what Tracy used to think, until she escaped from the hell she had lived in since birth. The young woman was walking along a dim street, remembering her bitter childhood. Tracy remembered herself at the age of 5, somewhere. She was born and raised in a small village. She really wanted a doll back then, in a bright dress with lush curls. Her friend had one like that, and Tracy somehow told her mum about it. "A doll?" Her mother chuckled and said rudely, "It's more than you deserve. Draw a doll on the paper and cut it out." "Oh, you are really shameless. Your mother feeds you, shoes you, and dresses you, and you're still not satisfied." The mother shouted a lot then, including insulting words towards Tracy. The girl didn't quite understand their essence, but she only understood that these were nasty words. Perhaps the softest one was brat, and throughout her childhood she heard it most often from her mother's own lips. "Hey, brat, why did you wash the floor so badly?" her mother would ask her when she came from the farm, and Tracy was so offended. At 8 years old, she tried to clean the house after school to please her mother, but instead of gratitude, she heard things like that. "Hey, brat, why are you making a face?" She heard it at 13 from her drunken mother. Tracy never argued with her mother and tried not to talk back to her because she knew that if something happened, she could beat her with a stick. The girl didn't understand why her mother treated her like that. At 14, she couldn't take it anymore and asked why her mother didn't love her. "But why should I love you?" Nina shouted angrily. "You've ruined my whole life." But Tracy couldn't understand what her fault was. She had lived only with her mother since birth. She didn't know her father. But can that be her fault? Neighbour Mrs. Shane, a kind old woman with whom the girl could discuss her problems, once told her a story about her mother. Nina was previously married to a calm and hard-working Sam. They lived modestly, both worked on the farm, and everything was good for them. But Nina couldn't get pregnant, and Sam really wanted a child. So Nina decided to cheat on him, thinking that it wasn't her problem. At that time, there were some workers in their village who were renovating a farm. Nina got involved with one of them. She thought no one would find out. Just a couple of times she would run off to a hotel with her lover near the farm canteen when Sam was out in the fields. But the affair dragged on, and her lover turned out to be a blabbermouth. And soon, almost the whole village knew their secret. Sam found out everything. He didn't try to work things out with Nina. He just gathered his things and left the village. Where and why, nobody knew. Later it was said that he was working up north, and that he died when his tractor crushed him. Nina was lost at first. She even cried that her husband had left her, but then she calmed down. Meanwhile, her lover moved in with her. Only by winter did he go back to his family in the distant South City, and Nina was left to deal with the aftermath. She was able to conceive a child, but did she really want him now? Nina went to the hospital, but they sent her away. It was way too late to do anything except give birth. Then Nina decided to leave her daughter at the maternity ward. But what would people say? She was ashamed. So she returned to the village with Tracy from the hospital, but maternal love never appeared, and with each passing year, she grew to hate her own daughter more. She blamed her for the failed marriage, for Sam's death, and for the fact that no decent man wanted to marry Nina anymore. Eventually, she started drinking, and her anger toward her daughter only grew. "You, little girl, must be patient," Mrs. Shane admonished Tracy after her story. "A mother is a mother. You can't choose her. Soon you'll graduate and then go to town, where you'll find a room to rent and get a job, even if it's just cleaning floors at a cafe or a hospital. Your mother won't bother you then, but for now, endure." Tracy listened and nodded in response. She understood why Mrs. Shane was sending her to the town instead of the city. It was easier to live there without support, but how hurtful it was. Nina herself made a mess of things, but she blamed her daughter for everything, and maybe Tracy would have taken Mrs. Shane's advice, but one incident changed everything. One summer, Nina brought another boyfriend home who was also her drinking buddy. They drank and had fun in the kitchen, but then the man started shouting at Nina, saying that she was ugly and old and that her daughter was the real beauty. Tracy had just turned 17 at the time. She sat in the next room, huddled in a corner, afraid to move. Hearing these words, Nina got furious. She kicked the man out and then attacked her daughter with her fists. Tracy had dealt with her mother's abuse before, but this time Nina was completely out of control. She hit her as hard as she could. Tracy managed to escape and run to Mrs. Shane. The elderly woman comforted her, and they cried together. That night, Tracy decided to run away from the village. She didn't want to go to the nearest town, as Mrs. Shane had suggested. She knew her mother would find her there and never leave her alone. Tracy wanted to go to the city, especially since she read in the local newspaper at the post office about a recruitment for students, and they provided dormitories. Tracy snuck into her house at night. Hearing her mother snoring, she breathed a sigh of relief. She wouldn't wake up until morning for sure. She quietly gathered her belongings, documents, and went to Mrs. Shane to confess her plans to her. "Oh, you poor thing," sighed the elderly woman. "How will you get to the city, and how will you live there? You don't have any money." "No," admitted Tracy, "but I will try to sneak onto the train. I know people do it that way." "Uh-huh, they do," snorted Mrs. Shane skeptically, said, "and then the police catch them. Well, maybe you'll make it to the city. But do you have anything to live on when you get there?" "I'll work," replied Tracy. "Yes, but what will you live on until your first paycheck?" said the elderly woman. Then she thought for a moment, sighed and went to her bedroom. She rummaged in the wardrobe for a while and then took out some bills for Tracy. At that time, it should have been enough for a month. "Oh, Mrs. Shane, you shouldn't do it," blushed Tracy. "I should, and I want." Mrs. Shane said it firmly. "Go away from here, my dear. Maybe you can change your own destiny." "Thank you," whispered Tracy emotionally. "I'll pay you back. When I earn it, I'll pay you back." Mrs. Shane smiled gently and shook her head. Early in the morning, Tracy took the scheduled bus to the district town, and from there she took the train to the city. Everything went as planned. She got into school, found a place in the dormitory, and even found a job, cleaning the common areas in the apartment buildings. She only broke one promise. She never gave the money back to Mrs. Shane. The kind-hearted woman died in the fall of that year. Tracy learned about this from her mother, who came to visit her daughter for the first and last time. It turned out that Mrs. Shane had told Nina where Tracy had gone. But Nina came not because she was worried about her daughter. No, she wanted to take Tracy home because she needed free labour to clean the house, look after the chickens in the yard, work in the garden, and do other chores. Fortunately, the school administration, seeing Nina and realising her secret motives, did not give her daughter back. Besides, Tracy firmly decided that she would never return to her mother. She had enough of her mother. Now she was alone and on her own. Yes, it was not easy for her at first in the big city, but Tracy tried her best. She studied and worked. She got a job at a factory after school and rented a tiny apartment with her friend. And then she met Brian, a good guy who worked as a mechanic at the factory. They got married and started living together. For the first time in her life, Tracy felt that she was not alone, and that she now had support and safety in the form of a close person. Tracy and Brian moved to Brian's parents when the factory closed and everyone was kicked out on the street. Brian's parents were just happy that their son and daughter-in-law would live with them. They were good people, and they helped Tracy greatly when their granddaughter Celeste was born. They were like parents to Tracy, and she was totally devastated when they were killed in a terrible accident. A truck crashed into a bus stop and both of them died. A lot of time has passed since then. Celeste had grown up. Brian had found a good job on a construction site, and Tracy herself worked as a salesperson in a grocery store. They led a simple life without luxury, but they were happy and satisfied. The most important things were the love and respect in their family. Tracy never thought that she would become a good wife and loving mother, as she had no role model growing up. But it turned out that way. However, Tracy tried not to think about her mother. All she knew was that Nina continued to live in the same village, drinking and not thinking about her daughter. If anyone asked about Tracy, Nina would cover her with foul language, saying that she was ungrateful and ran away, abandoning her mother. Tracy learned about this from her former classmate Helen, who still lived in the village and was Nina's neighbour. Her husband was a farmer who built a house nearby. Returning home from school, Tracy remembered all of this. Yes, I seem to have a mother, but I don't. She'd never seen Celeste at all. What kind of grandmother is she? Yes, it's a pity that Celeste will have to participate in the class event as little as possible. Others will sing songs to their grandmothers or read poems, and Celeste simply had no one to do it. She will be upset. She is very emotional. Brian met Tracy in the hallway, and the most delicious aromas were coming from the kitchen. "We're frying meatballs with Celeste," Tracy's husband announced happily, and he kissed her on the cheek. "Why are you so gloomy? Did something happen at the meeting? Did Celeste misbehave?" "Everything is fine," Tracy said with a sigh. "We just need to do something about math." She decided to tell her husband about the upcoming event later. They had dinner, Celeste ran to her room, and Tracy finally shared her worries with her husband. "Oh, come on," Brian shrugged. "It's not like our daughter is the only one growing up without a grandmother. Mrs. Bell is a wise teacher. She'll find her role. As a leading person, for example." "Yes, you're right," Tracy nodded. "I'm probably exaggerating everything." "You just remembered your story." Brian hugged his wife and stroked her head like a little girl. "My girl, forget everything. I'm here. Celeste is here too, and we love you very much." "And I love you," Tracy whispered in response. As it turned out, Tracy had worried for no reason about Celeste. She was given the role of host, and the event went great. Although there was a moment when Tracy saw sadness in her daughter's eyes. Celeste knew nothing about Nina or Tracy's childhood, because Tracy decided to spare the girl's psyche and only said that she hadn't talked to her mother in a long time. But everything changed on a Saturday evening in November. After a bath, Tracy decided to lie down with her phone and open a social media page. She saw a message from Helen, her former classmate. "Hello, Tracy," Helen wrote. "Your mother had a stroke yesterday and was taken to the hospital. I thought you should know. I found her on the street and called an ambulance. The doctors said she'll live, but you know that after such an illness it takes a long time to recover." "Well, let her recover," whispered Tracy. "What are you whispering about?" mumbled a sleepy Brian. "Are you chanting some mantra or what?" "If only," sighed Tracy, explaining what was happening. "We have to visit her, unexpectedly and decisively," said Brian, as if waking from a dream. "Tracy, she's your mother." "A mother who hated and treated me like a stray dog?" bitterly said Tracy. "Brian, I can't forget anything, and I can't forgive her either." "I understand it's difficult, but what else can we do?" "Helen said there's no threat to her life. She'll recover and start drinking again," angrily said Tracy. "What's going to happen to her?" "And if she doesn't recover?" her husband asked cautiously. "Tracy, we should look after her, so we don't blame ourselves later." "I won't even think about it," grunted Tracy, and turned back to him, trying to fall asleep. But sleep wouldn't come. She remembered her childhood, offences and insults. Could something like that be forgiven? For the following days and weeks, Tracy stubbornly pretended that nothing had happened, although thoughts of her mother and how she was doing didn't let her rest. Helen regularly wrote, telling her that Nina was still in the hospital. Brian asked about the news, but Tracy made excuses, saying that she was still in the hospital. And then Helen wrote that her mother had been discharged. "Tracy, I understand that you have difficult relationships with your mother and that you have reasons not to love her, but she's still your mother," wrote Helen. "You should see her now. She can barely walk and she speaks with difficulty, and it's already winter outside. We, the neighbours, are helping her as much as we can. We're heating up the house and bringing her food. But we have our own work. Understand it. If there was a social worker, it would be no problem, but there's none in our village. Maybe you'll pay someone to take care of your mother?" After reading the last sentence, Tracy protested aloud. Pay for her mother? They themselves weren't doing well, and she didn't have extra money. Tracy remembered the money that the late Mrs. Shane had given her to settle up in the city. Not her mother, but a neighbour. She also remembered how she cleaned floors at night to earn bread, and how she ate that bread, which was the cheapest and sometimes stale, drinking it down with water, and her mother didn't care about her. "She won't get a penny from me," hissed Tracy. Brian heard this and raised his eyebrows, asking what was going on. Tracy read him the message from her classmate. "But she's right," he nodded. "We need to find someone to help your mother." "So that she can pour her drinks?" Tracy got angry. "That won't happen." "Tracy, she's had a stroke. She probably won't be able to handle the drinks," doubted Brian. "But she's still your mother. She's alive. If my mother were still alive in this world—" "Don't compare!" Tracy cut him off sharply. "Your mother was a wonderful woman. She was like a mother to me, and my biological mother called me a brat and other nasty names. You can't imagine how painful it was to hear." "Forgive her." "I can't and I won't. I'd rather call the district social services office today and ask about the nursing home. Let her live there." Tracy and Brian were unaware of Celeste's approach to the door. However, the girl heard everything her parents were saying. "Mum," the girl suddenly spoke, "so you want to send your own mother, my grandmother, to a nursing home? Is that even possible? You didn't communicate with your mother for many years, and you didn't tell me anything about her, and now you want to get rid of her?" Tracy turned sharply at her daughter's voice and blushed. She didn't want her daughter to know everything, but what could she do now? "Sweetheart," Tracy said anxiously, "you're still young, and there are many things I can't tell you, but believe me, it will be better this way." "Better for whom?" Celeste cried. "For you? You don't ever think that I might send you to a nursing home too someday?" "What are you saying?" exclaimed Tracy. "Celeste, you can't judge me right now. This woman only gave birth to me, and then she only insulted me. I ran away when I was 17 because she beat me, and her drunken suitors harassed me." After saying this, Tracy fell silent, realizing that perhaps she shouldn't have told her daughter all of this. Celeste, who had grown up with love and care, could hardly believe that her own mother could act this way. But that was a long time ago. Maybe she had repented. The child suddenly said sensibly. Repentance. For some reason, Tracy didn't believe in it, but her daughter's words planted a seed of doubt. For the rest of the evening, she couldn't stop thinking about her mother. No matter what, she was still her own flesh and blood. "Let's go to the village tomorrow," Brian suggested as they were going to bed. We won't decide anything yet. Let's just go and see how your mother is living." "Okay," Tracy unexpectedly agreed. The next day, Brian took a day off work. Tracy changed shifts, and they set out in their old car. Tracy was lost in thought all the way, wondering what had happened to the village. She hadn't been there for so many years. And, most importantly, how would the meeting with her mother go? If she tried to insult her in any way, she would send her to a nursing home without a second thought. Over the years, the village had become dilapidated and smaller. Many houses were empty. Only Helen's house towered like a giant, and nearby was the old hut. Tracy's heart tightened. Her childhood home. No matter how badly she had lived there, it was still exciting. The courtyard was covered with snow, and only a thin trail indicated that people sometimes came there. The wooden door creaked heavily when Tracy pushed it open. The woman froze for a second and then entered the hallway. Everything was cluttered and dirty. Tracy involuntarily grimaced. Her mother had let everything go. Clearly they hadn't cleaned in years. Tracy was shocked. She touched the radiator. It was cold. The woman peeked into the bedroom, and she didn't immediately recognize her mother among the pile of rags on the bed. Finally, the pile moved, and Nina emerged from underneath. Her mother had become a complete old woman, thin and yellowed. Tracy felt sorry for her for some reason. She wanted to chase away that feeling, but she couldn't. "Hello, Mum," Tracy whispered quietly. Nina muttered something in response, then pushed aside the rags and sat down on the bed with difficulty. "Tracy," she said, barely audible. Did you recognize me?" asked Tracy in a trembling voice. "Of course, my dear," Nina replied, more clearly but slowly. "It's just that I didn't expect to see you." "But I came. Meet my husband, Brian." Brian nodded in response, visibly confused by what he saw. "You also have a granddaughter," added Tracy. "Her name is Celeste." "I know," Nina happily smiled. "Helen told me and showed me a photo on her phone." "I see," Tracy replied dryly and harshly. "So tell me what happened to you. Have you drunk yourself to a stroke?" She sat on a stool, brushing off the dust, and looked into her mother's faded eyes. Nina shrugged and lowered her head. "You're right, my daughter. I'm to blame for everything," she muttered, and then she sobbed and burst into tears. "Tracy, forgive me," she said, wiping her tears from her wrinkled face with a trembling hand. "I'm so guilty in front of you. This is my punishment for mistreating you. I only recently realized how wrong I was. I took out my grievances on you and drowned the pain in alcohol. I ruined my life with my own hands." Tracy listened to her mother and remained silent. She suddenly realized that there was no resentment, only pity for this unhappy old woman. "Okay, Mum, that's enough tears. Let's get ready." "Where to?" "To the nursing home. Helen told me it was the only place for me." Nina lowered her eyes and fell silent. "No," Brian suddenly broke the silence. "We'll go to our place. We have 3 bedrooms in our apartment. There's space enough for everyone, and you can't be left unattended." Tracy looked at her husband with surprise. After all, he was always a wise and kind man. Perhaps that's why she loved him. "Just remember my words. If you drink and are rude, I won't put up with it," she told her mother. "I understand. I won't do anything bad anymore. I'll listen to you in everything," Nina whispered, and then added, "Thank you, and forgive me." Tracy didn't say anything in response. They collected Nina's meagre belongings with Brian, put the old woman in the car, locked the door to the house, and set off for the city. Tracy drove, occasionally glancing at her silent mother in the back seat, and realized that she was doing everything right, as a human being should. There is a time for everything in life. Yes, not everything can be forgotten, but you have to learn to be wiser. Tracy closed her eyes. Ahead was the road home, and then a long journey of forgiveness.